Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at something that's pretty thought-provoking, the concept of laboratories of democracy.
Okay.
Now, you've probably heard that phrase before
Right.
in the context of the United States and how states within the U.S. kind of function as these laboratories.
Yeah.
But we're going to be taking it a step further today, and we're going to be looking at what if we applied that concept globally?
Interesting.
So what if nations acted more like states, testing out different approaches to governance,
Right.
sharing the results of their experiments?
Yeah.
And get this,
Okay.
what if countries could actually join the United States,
Wow.
making it kind of like a global union?
So like a much larger federation.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a pretty wild concept.
Yeah. It's a bold idea for sure.
Definitely.
With the potential for some really interesting outcomes.
Definitely.
Imagine a system where the best ideas kind of bubble up to the top, regardless of where they come from.
Exactly. So for those who might not know, the Laboratories of Democracy concept essentially means that states can experiment with different policies.
Right.
Almost like mini pilot programs for the whole country.
It's about fostering innovation
Yeah.
and encouraging a more responsive form of governance.
Absolutely.
One of the examples that we see in our source material this time is healthcare reform.
Okay.
The Affordable Care Act, for example, drew very heavily from a program that was initially implemented in Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's right.
And that state's success story with that program became kind of a blueprint for a nationwide system.
Interesting.
So you can see how it can work.
Yeah. So that's how it works within the U.S. But our sources this time take this concept a step further.
Okay.
And they ask us to imagine the U.S. functioning more like the European Union. So what if states had even greater autonomy? More power to shape their own destinies?
That is a fascinating thought experiment.
It is.
I mean, think about it. States could tailor their laws and economic policies to attract specific industries or cater to their unique demographics.
Okay.
It's almost like creating specialized economic zones on a massive scale.
So we could see states becoming even more distinct from each other.
Potentially.
Each one focusing on what they do best. Almost like a country within a country.
Right.
But wouldn't that lead to vast differences in how people live depending on where they happen to be?
That's a key question to consider.
Yeah.
While increased state autonomy could unleash a wave of innovation, we can't ignore the potential for inequality.
Right.
Some states might flourish while others struggle to provide essential services or attract investment.
Right.
It's a classic trade-off between maximizing local control and ensuring a baseline standard of living for everyone, no matter which state they call home.
And what about interstate relations? I mean, would we see states competing for resources? Would we see states enacting conflicting laws? Or even like closing borders to each other? Could this model actually lead to more division within the U.S.?
Well, those are all, valid concerns. I mean, historically, systems with decentralized power structures have often faced challenges related to coordination and dispute resolution. I mean, think about the Holy Roman Empire, for example. So a decentralized U.S. would definitely need robust mechanisms for interstate cooperation and conflict management.
Interesting.
Perhaps a more empowered interstate council. Or even a specialized judicial body to resolve disputes.
Okay, so it sounds like you'd have to come up with new institutions, new ways to manage these potential conflicts.
For sure.
Now, our sources take this a giant leap further. And they ask, what if this model, this decentralized model, wasn't just for states, but for entire countries? Could other nations actually join the U.S.?
It's a really bold idea.
It is.
But it's not entirely without precedent. If you think about the concept of Can-Zu-K, which has been gaining traction among some political thinkers and commentators, it proposes closer collaboration between Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom, leveraging their shared cultural and legal heritage.
I see.
So in a way, they're already kind of exploring this idea of nations aligning more closely based on this common ground.
So we're talking about a potential U.S. plus bloc forming with countries opting in based on shared values or strategic interests. What kind of countries do you think would be the most likely candidates?
Well, the source material suggests a few possibilities.
Okay.
English-speaking countries like Canada, Australia, and the UK, as we've mentioned, might be drawn to the familiarity of the U.S. system.
Yeah, because of that shared history and that shared legal system. Okay.
But it's not just limited to those countries.
Yeah.
Scandinavian countries could also be potential candidates with their robust social safety nets and focus on social welfare.
Yeah.
They might also find some common ground with a more progressive vision of a decentralized U.S.
Interesting.
And, even Latin American countries, potentially drawn by economic opportunities, could be contenders. Although the cultural and linguistic differences there
of course,
might present greater hurdles.
Right. It's fascinating to consider how a country's cultural and political landscape might influence its decision to join this bloc or not.
Absolutely.
But let's zoom out for a moment.
Okay.
Our sources paint a picture of a world that's divided, not just by national borders, but by ideological blocs. So we've got this potential U.S. plus group forming.
Yeah.
But they also talk about a BRICS plus bloc.
Right.
Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and potentially other nations that might challenge U.S. influence.
That's right. This two-bloc system is a recurring theme in discussions about the future of global governance.
Okay.
It's a world where power dynamics shift.
Okay.
With the U.S.-led bloc championing democratic values.
Okay.
And the BRICS Plus group focused on economic development.
Right.
And a multipolar world order.
So rather than a single superpower dominating the global stage, we might see two major power centers vying for influence.
Exactly.
That sounds like it could create a lot of tension, even conflict.
Yeah.
Would this two-bloc system make the world more stable or less stable?
It's a complex question with no easy answers.
Of course.
On the one hand, having two major blocs could actually lead to a more balanced global system.
Okay.
It could prevent any single nation from becoming too dominant.
Right.
And potentially create a more stable geopolitical landscape.
Okay.
Similar to the balance of power that existed during the Cold War.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Sometimes a bit of competition can be a good thing. It can keep everyone on their toes, encourage innovation.
For sure.
But the Cold War also had its downsides.
Oy.
Proxy wars.
Yeah.
An arms race.
Right.
Constant fear of nuclear annihilation.
Of course.
Wouldn't we risk repeating those mistakes?
Of course, those are valid concerns.
Yeah.
A two-bloc system would need to find ways to manage that competition.
Right.
And prevent it from escalating into outright conflict.
Okay.
One potential avenue for cooperation, even between blocs with different ideologies, is addressing global challenges that transcend national borders.
Okay, like what?
Like climate change, for example.
Okay.
No single nation or bloc can solve these problems alone.
So shared threats might force these blocs to work together.
Potentially, yeah.
Even if they disagree on other issues.
It's possible.
Could that cooperation eventually lead to something even bigger? Like a truly unified global governing body?
It sounds like science fiction.
It does.
But our sources seem to suggest it's a real possibility.
Wow.
Down the line.
Okay, so let's entertain that idea for a moment.
All right.
If we did have a unified Earth government, how could it possibly work?
Right.
I mean, would we have a single global leader?
Yeah.
Like some kind of emperor or empress?
It's unlikely that we'd see a single all-powerful ruler.
Okay.
A more plausible scenario is a representative system.
Okay.
Perhaps with a global legislature.
Yeah.
Composed of delegates from different regions or cultures.
So something like a supercharged version of the United Nations.
Exactly.
But with more authority to enact and enforce global policies.
Right. But of course, the logistics of such a system would be incredibly complex.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Ensuring fair representation for diverse populations.
Right.
Navigating language barriers. Respecting cultural differences.
Those are huge challenges.
These would be monumental challenges.
It's mind-boggling to even try to wrap your head around it.
Yeah.
And how would we ensure that this global government doesn't become too powerful?
Yeah.
And infringe on individual liberties?
That's where things get really tricky.
Yeah.
We need to design systems of checks and balances.
Right.
Maybe even a global Bill of Rights.
Okay.
To protect individual freedoms and prevent the concentration of power in the hands of a select few.
Yeah.
It would require a delicate balancing act between global unity and individual autonomy.
Okay, so we've gone from individual states to a U.S. plus bloc to a two-bloc world, and now a potential unified Earth government.
It's quite a journey.
I'm starting to feel a bit overwhelmed by all these what-ifs.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back down to Earth for a moment.
Okay.
And look at how these ideas could be put into action.
All right.
Our sources mention pitching these concepts to a hypothetical Department of Government Efficiency, headed by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy.
It's an intriguing idea, isn't it?
It is.
You've got Musk, known for his focus on innovation and technological solutions, and Ramaswamy, who emphasizes streamlining government and reducing bureaucracy. So could their combined expertise help bring these seemingly radical ideas into the realm of possibility?
It's like trying to bridge the gap between visionary thinking and practical implementation.
For sure.
But wouldn't pitching such transformative concepts to figures like Musk and Ramaswamy risk oversimplifying the complexities of global governance?
There's definitely a risk of that.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that these are incredibly complex issues.
Sure.
And simply applying a tech-focused or business-minded approach might not be enough to solve them. But on the other hand, sometimes a fresh perspective from outside the traditional political sphere is exactly what's needed to shake things up and spark new ideas.
Maybe that's the key takeaway here. These ideas, as wild as they might seem, can serve as a catalyst for rethinking how we approach governance, both on a national and global scale.
I agree.
They encourage us to question assumptions, explore alternative models, and consider what kind of future we want to build.
Absolutely.
You know, it's easy to get lost in these big picture discussions, you know, global power blocks, unified Earth governments. Let's bring it back down to a personal level for a moment.
Okay.
What would it actually feel like to live in this kind of world?
That's a great point. I mean, all these ideas about governance ultimately boil down to how they impact people's everyday lives.
Absolutely.
So let's imagine for a second. You wake up one morning and the world has changed. Countries can join the U.S. Maybe there's even a unified Earth government. What might be different?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is travel.
Okay.
Would we still need passports and visas? Would there be open borders between all these different regions?
It's certainly possible.
Yeah.
You know, one of the potential benefits of greater global integration is the ease of movement for people, goods, and ideas. Imagine being able to travel freely across continents.
Wow.
Experiencing different cultures, connecting with people from all walks of life without the hassle of border crossings.
That sounds amazing.
It would be pretty amazing.
But wouldn't that also create a lot of logistical and legal challenges?
Of course.
What laws would apply to you if you're constantly moving between different regions or former countries?
What about things like taxes and social services?
That's a good point.
Those are definitely important considerations. Creating a system with that level of interconnectedness would require a lot of careful planning and coordination.
I imagine a lot of work.
We'd need clear legal frameworks to determine things like jurisdiction, taxation, the distribution of resources.
It's not something that could happen overnight.
Definitely not. It would be a massive undertaking. But it's interesting to think about the possibilities.
It is, but beyond the practicalities, I wonder about the impact on cultural identity. Would we all just become like citizens of Earth, you know, losing our unique national or regional identities in the process?
That's a question that sparks a lot of debate.
I bet.
Some people might embrace a more global identity. You know, seeing it as a way to transcend national divisions and promote unity. Others might fiercely resist, wanting to preserve their cultural heritage and traditions. It's a tension that any future global government system would need to navigate carefully.
It reminds me of the ongoing discussions about globalization. Does it bring us closer together, or does it homogenize cultures and erase what makes us unique?
Exactly. It's a complex issue. No easy answers. But maybe the key is finding a balance. A way to foster global cooperation and interconnectedness while still valuing and protecting cultural diversity.
Well, like that.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that our shared humanity doesn't require us to erase our differences.
That's a really insightful way to put it.
Thank you.
This whole deep dive has been a fascinating journey.
It has.
From exploring the laboratories of democracy within the U.S. to envisioning a future with global power blocks and even a unified Earth government.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But, just thinking about these things, wrestling with the complexities can be incredibly valuable.
So to wrap things up today, we want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question to ponder.
Right.
If the world did move towards this two-bloc system, or even eventually towards a unified Earth government, what role would you want your country to play?
That is a good question.
Would you see it as a leader, a collaborator, a bridge builder, or maybe a voice of dissent?
The choices we make today will shape the world of tomorrow.
That brings us to the end of our deep dive for today. We hope you enjoyed exploring these complex and thought-provoking ideas with us.
I did.
Until next time, keep diving deep.